Hello, my name is Jose Garcia, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can import PTS files into Creo and create geometry out of those PTS files. This is very useful if you're, for example, in the aerospace industry and your geometry must be governed by certain points that another program generated for you. So we're going to go over a couple of tiny little things that you need to be aware of before you import these files, and then we will create actual geometry with those files. So I'm going to come up here into my new part, and I will just call this the spline example. That way we know what we're talking about. This is a solid. I'm going to use the default template. This is vanilla Creo. There's nothing special about it. I haven't set up any custom templates here. So everything is vanilla. Now from here, what we want to do in order to import these PTS files, we have to come up here into the point section located here. Now, if you drop this little menu down, you can go ahead and say offset coordinate system located here. So once you select this offset coordinate system, you will see the datum point window. The first thing that Creo is asking you for is a reference. So it needs a coordinate system in order to get those points in place. So we're going to come in here and choose the PRT CSIS, which is the default CSIS. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. As soon as you click that, you have the ability to import a certain file, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. In my case, I only have an X and a Y, and everything in Z is 0. So I'm going to say import, and if I go over into the desktop, I have an example here called spline example 3. Now, a couple of important things. Number one, you do not want to have spaces in your name of the PTS file. If you do, Creo will not see it. So you must use underscores. In addition, there is a limit to the amount of points that you can bring in, but for some reason I can't think of it right now, but I'm sure if you Google it, you will find the limit. I believe it's in the 30,000 range. So if you have more than that, it might not work. So the most important one, however, is to make sure that you have no spaces in the name of your PTS file. As you can see, I use underscores on all of mine, so I'm going to go ahead and double click on this spline example, and as you can see, it brings in all of those points very easily. So there's 20 points in here. These are just random points that I generated. And then I'm going to go ahead and say OK. So there are my points. So in this example, I mimicked the shape of a nozzle located here. And so now that I have these points, what I want to do is I want to create the geometry that is going to define my nozzle. And I can do that since my points are still in queue. I can go straight into the datum section located here and then go into curve and then curve through points. So if you choose that option there, you can see that Creo knows that all of these are in queue and it automatically shoots a curve throughout all of these points. So now I'm going to hit the green check mark located here. And as you can see, I have my curve there. So how do I use this curve to create actual geometry? Well, I want to get the surface of this of a revolve with respect to this curve, and I want to use the x-axis as my axis of revolution. So I'm going to go straight into the revolve command located here, and it's asking me for a datum plane or a face. I'm going to choose this datum plane here where my curve rests, the XY plane. And then I'm going to choose the project command located right here. And I will choose this 3D curve that I have here. As you can see, it projected the entire curve successfully. Now, before I finish this, however, I do need a center line in order for Creo to infer an axis of revolution. I highly advise that you do create a center line. You can choose the x-axis if you exit this menu, but still I encourage you to use a center line. So I'm going to come over here and choose the 2D center line, or the construction center line located here, and I will snap one in the horizontal direction. Once I finish that, I will hit the OK button, and as you can see, Creo says, hey, there's no solid geometry here. This will be a surface. I'm totally fine with that, so I'll say OK on that. And as you can see, there's the shape of my nozzle. So I can go ahead and hit the green check mark there, and there's our nozzle that we got from our spline points. So this is one way of working with points in Creo. There's another method that you can use, and I will show that to you next. So this was going through point and offset coordinate system, but this next option you can use in the sketcher. So I'm going to come over here and do a new part file. I'm just going to call it, 3534 for now. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the sketcher located here, and I will choose, let's choose the front plane for now, the XY plane, and I will say sketch. Now, if your sketch does not automatically orient, you can hit this little button here that says sketch view. So now that we have that available, we can come up here to the spline tool. Now, I haven't found a way to actually access the spline menu without creating the spline first. So what I need to do is I'm going to hit the spline button, and I'm just going to click randomly here and there. And I think my mouse is really not liking what I'm doing here. There we go. The only reason why I'm doing that is so that I can have a spline here that I can edit and modify to access a certain menu. So once you have created this, very simple spline, go ahead and hit the escape key until you get these weak dimensions. I should point out that this is all done in Creo 5, but it is all very similar as far as I'm aware from Creo 2 onwards. So now that you have these weak dimensions, if you double click on the spline, you get the spline tab here. All of these buttons at your disposal. So what you need to do if you want to import a certain amount of points into the sketcher, you need to create a coordinate system. You cannot use the coordinate system that's located here. You must create one within the sketcher. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into the sketch here, this tab. And then I'm going to come over here and choose the coordinate system located there. This is a 3D coordinate system. You should not use this one. Use the one located here. So I will choose the coordinate system there, and I will snap it on top of the already existing coordinate system that we have, like so. Then I will hit escape. Now, if you notice, as soon as I place that coordinate system, Creo, for some reason, does not infer that I want the y-axis to be vertical. So you can make this into a strong dimension if you wish. That way it's always 90 degrees and it never moves. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on the dimension, then hit Control T, that makes it into a strong dimension, and simply hit the Enter button. And as you can see, this is now a purple color compared to all these other ones. Now that we have our coordinate system, let's double click on the spline again. As you can see, we get the spline tab again. And then you can go into File. Now from here, it's asking you for a coordinate system. So I'm going to choose the one that we just put in there, this X, Y, and Z. As you can see, it highlights in red. And when I click it, it allows me to import certain points into the sketcher. So I'm going to come in here and say read point coordinates from file. Again, this is a PTS file. That's the only file that this thing will accept. Excuse me. So I will double click on spline example 3. It says file contains different number of points. Do you want to continue? Say yes. And as you can see, the spline that we created is gone. And now we have our spline governed by our points. So if I go ahead and hit this green check mark and then refit this thing, you can see that now we have the ability to move these points around if we so desire to make our spline a little bit more flexible. You can do this through the points, or you can do it through the pole structure of certain splines. And in order to do that, all you have to do is double click on this spline, and you can either move it through this option here, interpolation points, or using control points. If you want to look at the acceleration of the spline, you can do that by enabling this button here. So hopefully you learned something new in this spline tool. There are two methods for you to do this. Each one has their pros and cons, but depending on your application, you might want to go with one or the other. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something new, and stay tuned. I'm going to have a lot more videos coming up for you. Thank you. Bye-bye.